All right, we're now recording. This is DH Thorne coming at you live with my class tonight. We're going to be talking about protections, rituals related to protection, things like that. Protection's a big subject, so we'll probably talk about a bunch of things. And we started off, we were going to go around the class. We got some people saying they're going to be late, so we're going to hear some stories from you guys. Because if you guys recall, the last class that we held was just before the lunar eclipse, and the intention was for people to do a ritual that day, or around that day, or around that time, as best you could. And Boredom was just telling us all about the ritual he did with King Vine to break the ties that bind, however you want to describe it. It's an anti-binding ritual that helps with that. And it's also good for like a road opener or just a general energy blockage kind of ritual. It's very basic. You know, I didn't really put any high ceremonial magic intention into it. I just used like low magic symbolism in there. That's all I really did. And what you put into is what you get out. And you were saying, Boredom, that you didn't memorize it, you didn't do it like a rehearsed ritual. This was a thing that you sort of started off, you called the spirit, presumably, then you went through your version of that ritual. So where were we? You were saying it went very well. You felt a great relief, I guess you said, is what you were getting at?
Mm-hmm. Yep, so prior to that, I've been a bit lazy with just ritual work and all that for a long time, just not feeling it. And somebody
I know that feel.
somebody mentioned in one of the classes about that ritual in your book, so I decided it seemed like a good fit, so I looked into it, and with the lunar eclipse, seemed like a great idea to do that ritual, and it really, at the very least, I felt everything kind of just felt really relieved afterwards, and felt like a connection back to everything for him again. So
Beautiful.
very
Beautiful.
good ritual.
Thank you. I mean, it's very simple. It's a very simple ritual. I mean, I even hesitate to call it a ritual. It's basically it's like a low magic spell. It depends on what you put into it, though. You know, it's sometimes the simplest spells are the best, and really you did it. Like, I don't see it as the ritual did it. Really, you did it. You connected with that fiery energy of King Vine. If there was a magical attack on you, he probably helped you break it. If there wasn't an intentional one, because sometimes the attacks come from unintentional people. You know, the evil eye is a real thing. When people wish hell on you, when they wish doom on you, when you piss people off, little bits of that negativity rub off on you, even if we're just talking psychiatrically. You know, just, people don't like you, and you start to feel down, and depression's a real thing. And there's so many different layers to this that it'd be impossible to talk about them all. Every once in a while, some kind of a grounding / road opening ritual is probably a good idea for most people, just to cleanse. And this is not unlike what the lesser banishing rituals kind of really meant for. There's some things I've learned about that I didn't know going into magic years ago, that I've only learned about recently. I'll probably be doing a video for YouTube about that sooner or later. Things I've learned that I got wrong and shit like that, which is probably a good idea. But there's a lot we're going to cover when it comes to this stuff. And that bind breaking ritual is just one way of helping you like break out of whatever stagnation is going on that might be from a magical source or your own source. As someone who experiences depression from time to time, and lethargy related to it, and lack of, maybe inspiration. I'm not a practitioner, right? That's not how I roll. I'm very much a creature of passion when it comes to the things that I do, although I do have a lot of habits in life. Ritual is not something that I'm unlike E.A. Coetting, for example, who says you should be doing rituals every day, all day. I do think that there's a place for practice, obviously, but I think that people can overdo it. And for me, I overdo that very quickly. If I try to do it every day, I get burnt out very quickly if I try to do anything every day. So I find I got to change things up, and I've got to always be learning. If I'm not learning and inspired, I don't feel really interested in it. It's got to always be something different and special. So that being said, every once in a while, though, I do get the impression that I feel like, hey, maybe this is the influence of somebody who doesn't like me. Maybe a fight I had with someone in my family today is making me feel like crap. Or maybe there's someone in the community that hates my guts and they did a hex on me or something. It happens. I have no doubt about it. In fact, I know of one person who probably tried to do that recently. So what's up, Amobius? Glad to see you're showing up. He'll probably pop in a second. So all the more reason to do that stuff. So Somniator, I know that you got your audio working again. Hopefully, if you can talk, let me know. If you can't, did you manage to do any rituals for the lunar eclipse? And if so, if you feel comfortable talking about it, maybe let us know what you did or what you didn't do. What you thought about it.
No, I didn't do any rituals for that.
Okay, no problem.
I just do the LBRP when I can.
Okay. Now, when you do the LBRP, I definitely want to delve into the LBRP because I don't use it, but for some people, I think it's golden, right? And as a practice, it's actually very useful. But when you use it, do you use it as written, or do you change it for like a different pantheon? How do you change it if you do?
I changed the location of one of the. Wait, I have to think about it. Because you got certain elements in certain directions and then certain angels
Correct.
in certain directions.
Correct.
And I think I've got the elements all in the usual order, but I have the angels in a different order.
Okay, so you're still using, because you usually put Gabriel is water, Michael's fire, Uriel is earth, or I got it backwards, and Raphael is south, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Well, I've got Raphael on the east as fire.
Okay, all right, yeah. I think Michael was put as fire because he's got the flaming sword, I think is what they were picturing, but I could be wrong, because to a lot of people, swords is air, not water, not rods, not fire, whatever.
Sword to Uriel.
Swords are air, yeah.
Because he protected the Garden of Eden with a flaming sword.
Correct, but then it's a flaming sword, so maybe that's why they put him in the flaming direction. But yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I think it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If we think about what we're doing in the context of the LBRP, it's not really a protection ritual, although people use it as such. It's more like a preliminary ritual. It's more like a grounding ritual, versus the invocation version, which is more of a let's center and get ready to do work. This is more of a I'm done type of thing, So I do
want to say that I've been thinking about changing from the archangels to some goetic entities that also represent air, fire, water. And because there are 4 goetic entities that I'm thinking about working with, mostly because I had a goetic reading with another YouTuber that gave me those. So plus Lucifer.
I will say that if you go with the Goetia, if you can find the original context of the north, south, east, and west, I think it's what is it? Paimon is in the south, Amamon is in the east, Orions, and I forget who the other one is. But you've got 4 that are 4 cardinal demons. I know 4 and cardinal is like, you're saying, it's like saying bow staff. It's saying the same word twice. But 4 cardinal demons that were put in charge of the directions in the various editions, which you can use, and that's actually a very valid way to do it. Some people might even suggest. I know Damien Eccles had suggested that since it's 72 and 72, although let's be honest, it's not 72 for the demons, because the different editions of different books, collections of the demons, some have different demons in them, so they don't exactly line up, but they pretty much do. And he's got them as mirrors of each other. So like the angel is the positive side of what the demon is, and they're basically they complement each other. And that you go around clockwise with the angels and then counterclockwise with the demons. That's his view, and I like it. I'm not saying I don't, but I'm not really, especially now, I'm not into the Christian symbolism anymore. And some people will say, well, isn't it wrong to use Christian symbolism with demon work? And I will say wrong is a subjective term. I don't think it's necessarily wrong. I just don't vibe well with Christian symbolism anymore. So if I was going to be doing the LBRP, what I want to do is I want to deconstruct it, what it's actually doing. Make sure the symbolism matches what I believe, or what I shouldn't say believe, but what resonates better with my symbolism. If Christianity gives me a pain, then I might avoid the angels. But we also have to remember that when we're talking about Tetragrammaton and all these other Kabbalistic things, that the Kabbalistic version of this is way more closer to a non-dualistic, persona-free version of spirituality. In other words, Tetragrammaton would be like an emanation of the source. It'd be like, they might call it God, but that's not really what it is. That's why they say that the name of God cannot be spoken. It's not because it's just a sin. It's because there is no word that properly encapsulates the ultimate what it is. So they have words for it under it, and they'll describe it as the alpha and the omega and the blah, 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 blah. But of course, I'm not a fanatic for that symbolism. I don't like it. Crowley, on the other hand, and the Golden Dawn, they came up during a period when Christianity was the Christianity and Judaism as a whole were the most prevalent beliefs in the land. And so they went with that mixed with some classical things with tarot and a little bit of Vedic stuff and a little bit of this and that. But Christianity and Judaism were really like, the bigger of the two salt shakers, you know what I mean? Like when they're putting the ingredients in. So they definitely included all that because it worked for people at the time. It wasn't counter to what they believed, and it made them feel a little bit more secure. It wasn't like they were working with demons because they were working with a God that they recognized from their own beliefs. So it's almost Christian magic, if one wanted to be very generous with the term. For me, doesn't vibe as well, just because it just doesn't. I would rather go back to Egyptian, Sumerian, even Greek Hellenistic stuff. Just vibes better with me. Norse stuff. So what I would want to do is when I'm looking at this, like people get all antsy about the Kabbalistic cross because they hear the word cross and they go, oh, must be Christian. Not exactly, because it's meant to be oriented with astrological symbols and connection to the universe and all of this stuff. You can overlay or exchange all of the elements of the beginning, like the Kabbalistic cross, with the chakra system. I mean, it's really, you're pointing to the crown, the heart, and the root chakra, really, when you're doing this, and you're kind of skipping over several in the process. But that's also correct in that there are three major centers of human experience: the heart, the head, and the lower area. It's like we can divide our consciousness into three areas, and then within that, each one kind of can feel like it has three different areas as well. So, your miles may vary with your symbolism, but I won't lie that I use sometimes something very similar, but I don't call it a Kabbalistic cross, and I don't do it that way. But the symbolism is the same. I'll work through the chakras really quick as part of a thing, and I don't usually capture all that because it's not part of, like, I don't see the Lesser Banishing Ritual or any equivalent of it as a way to begin a ritual, though a lot of people do, because it tends to be a good grounding exercise. You could use the invocational version of it instead, also fine. But it's really meant to be a daily practice that you do twice a day, right? Especially at night before you go to bed. It's meant to cleanse you of your baggage, in your both energetic and emotional. It's kind of like when we would do, I think I brought this up in my last live video, when we would do our martial arts classes, you'd start off the class, and at some point, usually when you're finishing up and cooling off the warm-up, you'd meditate for 5 minutes, and during that you were supposed to be letting go of all the stress and things that you had built up in the day so that you could focus. So you'd breathe in good ideas and breathe out negative ones. Very rudimentary practice of magic, basically. But very, very workable. And the LBRP is like a classical version of doing something like that. So it can be very effective, So by all means, continue doing it if it's working for you. But I do think it really helps with building up awareness of your own energies too, if you're doing it right. If you're feeling like, oh, I want to switch an angel, that's probably because you've got a connection to the symbolism and you really want to make that symbolism work, because it doesn't feel right. The vibration doesn't feel right. It's not that Raphael is that direction. It's that for you, Raphael is that direction. And so you change it, and that's a very fair thing to do. All right. So that being said, remember, the LBRP I don't see as a protection ritual. And when we call it a banishing ritual, it's not really what it sounds like. It's not actually banishing, like you can't really use the LBRP to like cast out the demons, right? That's not really how I see it. That's not how people who do it. And I've only been learning this stuff, some of it more recently too. I never really used it because it always just felt like, I don't like the symbols in it. But it's not really banishing anything. You're basically, what you're banishing is something internal. You're not casting out the demons in the room. You're not doing anything like that. Though it does affect the energy of the space, I believe. If your belief is that way, I certainly do believe it. I do think that if you do that with your ritual talismans and tools exposed, your subconscious might go, I'm overriding everything. I'm overriding all the energy and everything. I'm clearing everything out. So it might be a good idea if you're going to do it in a place where it's not going to interfere with your magical tools. Do it in a place where you don't mind kind of like hitting delete and then emptying the trash can on whatever you got going on around you. But not my experience. I don't use it very much, so I'll let your experience tell you what it should be. Amobius, welcome back. I see you're muted, but I see you're here. Thank you for coming. I know you said you're going to be late because of work. Last we checked, I do believe you were going to be doing a ritual on the lunar eclipse, and I believe you said you did. So we heard from Boredom Kills what he did, and Summonator said he didn't, but he does practice the LBRP. So what did you do, Amobius? Did you do anything for? I think you said you did for the full moon. I mean, for the lunar eclipse.
I did the breakbinds ritual with Vina, and it went really well. It was a total of about 6 hours. I made it a big one, about 8 hours total in setup. I was sitting meditating for probably 4 or 5 hours, and
wow,
the sun actually came up before I finished. It was more of I noticed there was a lot more. I didn't get any really manifestations or even weird little things going on, but it was I could definitely notice that as I was going to sit down to do it, all my binds internally and stuff were kind of flaring up, and I was kind of having a little bit of a hard time before I was like, whoa, what is this? And I was like, oh, this is it. And then so I went and sat down and finished it, and all I can say, I've had a good couple weeks since then, so I'd say it was successful.
That's something. That's really something, because I was impressed with Boredom Kills, but that's pretty big, dude. I mean, you spent a long time on that, and that's tough to do, man. Like, I don't do rituals for 4 or 5 hours, at least not anymore. Maybe when I was a kid, I might do something like that. Now I'm just like, all right, I'm bored. Yep, we're good, spirits, we're good. That's impressive. You spent that much time preparing yourself for it. But maybe, if you're talking about a strong enough bind or a strong enough issue, why not, right? Meditate as long as you have to connect with what's going on. But it's pretty funny because you and Boredom Kills did the same thing. You both did basically the same ritual. Obviously, you followed different methods for each one. So we're going to be. So is there anything else you wanted to say about it, or is that the meat and potatoes of what you want to say?
I'd say that's the meat and potatoes.
Okay, so let's go through protection 101, 102, and 103 with whatever time we got. We're going to culminate tonight with the creation of a protection talisman amulet. Really, it's an amulet since it's protective that you can make and keep with you. Hopefully you guys got stuff for it, but it's pretty easy to make. You probably got the stuff you need laying around. If you don't, you can of course make it later on. You can watch this video again and make it separate. That's perfectly fine. So what we're going to be doing tonight by the end of this is I have a piece of cardstock, which I use for a lot of my rituals, just black cardstock. I will be drawing it and using a marker, a white marker, and we will be energizing it. And what we're going to do is we're going to start it up now. Now, theoretically, it'd be good to do if you got celestial alignments, but we don't really. It's I don't know exactly what the time will be. Let me check my my planetary alignment, but you don't have to worry about it. You can do magic anytime, but it tends to be good if you can get your planetary alignments right. Let me see, what time is it? Where are you? All right, let's see. So it's Monday for the moon. So good protection is usually during Martian hours, is usually a good time. And Mars won't be until midnight. So, and that won't be the same day. So we've kind of missed the boat here for that. But the hour of the moon will be when we're doing it. So we could call this maybe like psychic protection, maybe. But it won't really matter. It's just the point is if you want to look up your planetary hours, you can, of course, try to align things with that to make things have a little bit more symbolism and therefore maybe a little bit more strength. But so we're going to be drawing a sigil. Now, I've got a sigil in mind, but you guys can make up your own if you don't like the one that I have. And I'll be showing you that in a little bit. But we'll be putting a sigil on paper or cardstock. If you don't have any handy, we can always take a break for a minute if you want to grab it. You probably get away with just using like an index card or even printer paper, although it's kind of like the cheap and cheesy way, but it's fine if that's all you got. And if not, you can always do this later with something better. You can even put this on something permanent like wood, engrave it into metal, paint it on your wall of your ritual chamber. There's all kinds of ways you can do this. But we're going to be doing the we'll say the initiation of the amulet, and then we're going to make it a somewhat regular practice for you guys to regularly charge it with intention and energy, and just keep it with you, and just always be giving it a little bit more oomph and a little bit more this and a little bit more that. Refresh it from time to time. Something you can either carry around with you, or you can put it in your grimoire, you can put it in your ritual chamber, put it in your car, in the glove box, wherever you feel like you want to have a little added protective energy going on. So let's really dive in a little bit. So magical protection. There is, of course, the low magic kind of protection and the high magic kind of protection. The low magic kind of protection is from sort of mundane physical life threats, things like that. And the higher magic version of protection is spiritual protection, protection from curses, protection from things of that sort. You can make an amulet that does both. There's absolutely no reason why it couldn't. But remember, we need to avoid superstitious thinking and think more in line of, we are challenging our consciousness, the universal consciousness of the non-dual nature of ourselves, to, are we in alignment with that? We're basically looking for a response. We want to treat magic as a way of communicating with our higher self. That's what I'm coming to understand with a recent batch of downloads. It's not really about your, getting success in some venture in life, although that's a useful litmus test. It's not about the acquisition of something or even the creation of an experience. It is about encapsulating experience with a magical perspective, so that when something does happen, you really look at it and go, there's more to this than just what I see. There's more to this. It's almost like I asked for something, like I knew it was going to happen. You really want to have that opinion that what I did wasn't something that I caused. In other words, I didn't cause reality to bend or shift. I was in alignment with reality, and that's why I did what I did. That's kind of more like what you're going for. Think of it kind of like on Star Wars, okay? When Obi-Wan Kenobi is teaching Luke about the Force, and Luke says, do I control it? Does it control me? And Obi-Wan says, only partially. And there's a lot of truth in that. Now, there's a little bit of a misunderstanding, which I'm not going to go too deep into. We've discussed this before, and it gets a little nauseous to talk about non-duality end to end every time I bring up the subject. But the idea of there being control or power over anything is part of the illusion of Maya, part of the illusion of what they call avidya, which is that ignorance that you don't realize that you're everything. So you're already omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. You're all three of those already, all the time, but you have an ignorance about it. You think you're right here in this little tiny spot. So you feel like the world happens and you're in some kind of adversarial contest with it somehow. Even if it's in a positive way, you feel like you're in an adversarial tug of war with reality. You want this, the universe doesn't want to always give it to you, and you're fighting and blah, 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 blah. That's a perceptual ignorance. If you understood the bigger picture, you'd recognize that nothing that happens is ever really bad. It's never really evil. There's really no reason to be upset. If you realize that your body is literally like, not even like, even Avatar is giving it too much importance. It is like an RC car for your soul. It is completely expendable because there's millions of them. I mean, it's like this one, it's only important to you because you're in it, and it's right now, it's the center of this universe. But that doesn't mean that it's important that it lives forever. It's not important that it's always in comfort. It's not important that it's always winning. It's more important that the experience you have is fulfilling and properly aligned with that blissful nature of the universe at play. That is more accurate to what you need to think about. So protection is sort of like, instead of seeing it like, please save me, okay, you have to see it like, I want to become aware. I want to recognize when synchronicity or miraculous protection happens. So it's not really about I'm causing that protection. I want to recognize when there is no rational way I could have been protected except for by magical influence. The reason this is a better approach is because it's not about success or failure in your ritual. It's about learning. It's about learning to encapsulate your reality so that you recognize when it happens. Because I'm learning myself, as I'm studying other systems of magic a little bit more, that pretty much all the higher forms, the higher ceremonial forms, whether it be Golden Dawn, Thelema, some of the other more obscure stuff, even Solomonic magic, Kabbalah, all that, it's all a type of theurgy that teaches you, because theurgy doesn't just mean working with a spirit. Sometimes it means just becoming, just elevating, just ascending. They're all forms of theurgy that are there to teach you that your true nature is basically God, for lack of a better term. It's the non-dual source, which is called God in many religions. Okay, so it's coming to realize that you are God incarnate, not in that egotistical, arrogant, like I'm better than you, I'm God incarnate, but that very spiritual, mystical understanding that we're all God incarnate, that we have a right to experience that divinity. That doesn't mean that we have a right to break the world and make it in our image necessarily, although we do. It's not that D.H. Thorne does it. D.H. Thorne doesn't do that. D.H. Thorne is a manifestation of that. So rather than trying to bend the world and protect us by putting up shields that block out anything that's going to test us, because that's the last thing we really want. If we really want to recognize our true non-dual nature, we actually need these experiences which cause us to question whether any of this even matters. You know, we need our best friend and lover to die on us. We need to lose our leg in a war. We need all of these horrible things to happen so that our attachment to these things can be tested. Doesn't mean that it has to happen constantly or anything, but it's a necessary part of the experience. And without that dichotomy, that apparent duality, which it's not really a duality, without the apparent duality of happiness and sadness, we can't know either one. We have to know the bad times to know the good times. So this is why our magic, at least the one I'm going to be teaching from this point forward, although it's kind of what I've always been teaching, but really going to hammer this home, is not about cause and effect. It's about learning to properly vibe with the true will that you are, to know that you are the force and the force is with you, and that you are there to not bend and twist reality, but to recognize that what's bending and twisting is you as reality. Kind of like in the Matrix with the kid with the spoon, which I bring that up a lot. There is no spoon. You can't bend the spoon. That's absurd. The only thing you have to recognize, you're bending yourself. That is really deep, and it's a lot deeper even than the movie makes it sound, because they make it sound like, oh, there's no spoon, you gotta. It sounds like that just believe in yourself bullshit that a lot of people resort to. That's not what we're talking about. It's worse than that. It's bigger than that. It's deeper than that. When you say, oh, if I bend myself, then I can bend spoons. No, the spoon is already bending. You're already bending the universe already just by being here. You can't bend it any more than you're already doing it. Okay, you can't bend it more than because that's what you already are. You already are the omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent thing that bends everything. So it's already bending to your will even now. The real trick in magic is not to see God or the universe as some external thing that you must appease or ask for help. You have to learn to connect with it so that you can be an instrument of your own doing. You know, this sounds in the wrong context almost right hand, because it sounds like you're saying you're submitting. You're not. You're recognizing that you're already in the position of, you're already the glove on the hand. You can't help but go where the hand goes. You have to recognize you are the hand. You are the hand of God, and that God is you ultimately. So when we're doing this protection ritual, we're not trying to make ourselves safer. In fact, I can't stand the obsession that modern world has with safety. I think that people are risk averse, and that ruins their experience of life so much, because instead of looking at things and going, oh, this is going to be a grand adventure, they go, I don't feel safe right now. Safety is paramount. That's not a healthy attitude. It never has been. That's never been a good way to look at the world. We need to integrate that shadow. So when we're doing this protection ritual, to reiterate one more time, the reason we're going to be doing this protection, or any protection for that matter, is so that we learn to recognize those synchronistic, seemingly miraculous moments when, by all measures, we should have died or we should have lost our shirt, or, you know, we got protected somehow, you know. How many times have any of you guys had the experience where maybe, just as an example, it doesn't have to be this exact thing, but how many times have you had the experience where it's like, just to give you an example, it's happened to me, like I was going to go to the store and something bad happened at home, you know, like maybe I tripped and hurt my foot, and I was like, fuck it, I'm not going out tonight, I don't feel like it. And so I stay home, and then I hear sirens like 20 seconds to a minute after I would have left the house. And it's like, could that have been me if I had left the house like I planned? If I hadn't have stubbed my toe and said, fuck it, you know, would that have been me in that accident? Could that have been me? Doesn't mean it was, but the question arises. What about, have you ever had a more firm example where like maybe you have a real prediction, something bad's going to happen to you, and you act on it, and then you find out that yes, indeed, if you had been there, maybe you would have had a bad time for sure. You know, maybe a good hypothetical story would be you dream that you're going to have a car accident tomorrow, and so you really believe the dream was very vivid, so you don't go out tomorrow, you stay home, and then while you're sitting at home, on the news is a bridge collapse, and it's the bridge you would have been on coming home from work, right? That is the moment where you go, wow, what just happened? And that's that moment when we all for a moment go, how did I know that? You know, that makes us start asking questions about our place in the process. And this is why I often told you guys from the beginning, magic is not a thing that we do. It's more like a celebration of a thing that's already in motion. When we do a ritual, the ritual doesn't cause it. The ritual is a celebration of the thing that's already being done. So, armed with that, what are some of the things we could think of for protection? There is almost an endless parade of ways that you could do this. I like simple freeform stuff. You guys all know that. I'm more inclined to go into a meditative trance, try to feel, visualize, become aware of either my energy or a protective spirit or both. Try to, you know, sort of take an assertive tone in my own soul, you know, because God doesn't beg, right? God doesn't demand either. It just happens. You know, what God desires happens. It would be the very simplistic, childish way of looking at it. You know, so we don't beg the spirits, we don't command them either, we don't coerce them, we don't roar at them, but we do command reality just by stating the truth. You know, you don't say, please protect me, O Great One. You say, I am protected by the power of this force, and blah, blah, blah. And you say it with stern, fulfilled belief in your heart. You know, you say, I am protected. You know it's the truth, and you know that's how it is. This even comes from how really revivally Christians will pray. They don't speak in begging terms. They speak as if it's a thing already done. And one way or the other, they get experiences that they claim are true. So let's take a note out of their book and keep that in mind. So let's go around the room and just, what do you guys think are some examples of protection rituals? And we'll go around with that first. And whatever you guys don't bring up, if I can think of stuff, I'll add. So let's start from bottom to top. Somniator, what, if anything, can you think of that serves as a protection ritual, specifically protection, or a protection amulet, or whatever?
Like a Native American medicine bag.
Okay. All right. Yep. And I'm not super familiar with it, but I do know what you're talking about. Yes, they usually put all kinds of things in there that depending upon the tradition, to my understanding, it can be filled with anything from stuff that makes them think of their mom or their loved ones, or holy herbs and spices, things that they can smoke if they want to, rocks and stones that remind them of sacred, you know, protected things, all kinds of different traditions, different ways to look at that. That's a great example. Absolutely. Okay, Amobius, can you think of one that is also potent or that you would try?
I'm using a black obsidian ball right now for my protection. I haven't done any actual protection rituals though.
Okay, all right. Black obsidian, black tourmaline, shungite for different purposes, supposedly. Again, it's just a rock. It's just a piece of glass. You know, it by itself, I'm not saying it has no power, because all of reality is conscious, okay? Everything is consciousness. So I don't want to belittle it too much by saying it's just a rock, but from the rational perspective, it is just a rock. And we're all stuck a little bit in that, like a tick. We're embedded in that rational world that we live in that's going to remind us all the time, it's just a rock, guys. But yet it still symbolizes, across many cultures, many of the same things. Obsidian, Apache tears, it's got a lot of symbolism across different cultures, and everybody, let me ask you this: is there such a thing as a cursed rock? Right? Is there such a thing as a crystal or mineral that is just evil you're supposed to avoid? No, they're all good medicine, in a more shamanistic way of looking at it. They're all positive medicine. There is no such thing as a negative crystal, a negative rock, although they can get tainted, we'll say. So, for example, probably the best example I can think of off the top of my head would be smoky quartz, because smoky quartz, the symbolism is that it's a pure quartz crystal that's getting darker with the negativity that it's absorbing. Although other people see it more as the perfect stone for that invisible chakra system, like the shadow chakra that goes from the crown to the root. Like it's kind of like that tube, if you will, that nadi or whatever. That's external, but it's but in most traditions that I'm aware of, that I ever encounter, especially in New Age shops and stuff, the smoky quartz it's definitely attracting that negative energy into it and purifying, and you do have to cleanse it from time to time. I think what's the other one? I don't really use it very much, but it's not gypsum. It's like gypsum. Starts with selenite. Okay, selenite's another really good purifying crystal. It's really good at that. Salt is an excellent ward and protector substance, because it is, for very good reason. Symbolism that has its root in practical truth is always better than symbolism that is just like flaky crap you hear online, or from somebody who told it to you. And if you really research it, the really most powerful ingredients for magic do have a practical element to them that validates their use in that. Now, salt is one of them. The reason why salt is seen as so protective and purifying and absorbing is because salt is a desiccant. It does absorb water. It does actually purify things. If the ancients knew that if I put my raw meat in a bag of salt, it is protected, and it is salted meat, and it doesn't get germ infested. The maggots leave it alone, and I can eat it. Yeah, it's a little too salty, but I boil it, and it's fine, right? I can boil that meat, and I can keep it in that bag. I don't need refrigeration, and it keeps it safe for a long time, and it dries out. It makes jerky, basically. So the ancients knew this, and they didn't see it as chemical properties. They saw it as alchemical, spiritual properties of salt. This, even now, most people, when they hear this, they go, oh yeah, of course, I do like salty jerky. I do get it. So that symbolism of salt being really protective and absorbing negative things, very, 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 very lucid, even to someone who's kind of having a hard time with the symbolisms involved, because the symbolism of obsidian is a little tougher. Why is obsidian protective? Even I'm not 100% sure exactly what the origin of that is, but then again, if you look and you check the purpose of any crystal, they all say, with almost out fail, that it's protective. There's almost no crystal that doesn't say protective on it somewhere. Protective and healing, protective and healing. Everything is protective and healing, always. Fine. I'm not disagreeing with it, but it's interesting that that's what's always said about it. But obsidian is very effective, especially for emotional dirt, especially for that kind of stuff. Obsidian, the reason why I use obsidian of some sort, whether it's regular obsidian or mahogany in shadow work, for creating that vampiric stone that I talk about, is because it's a natural negative emotional energy absorber. It just, I've noticed when I feel like shit, I like looking at obsidian. I just like looking at it. It helps ground me, helps me feel like, makes me feel dark and Saturnian. It makes me feel all those good, maybe a little bit of Plutonian going. It makes me just feel like, what's the music? The dun, 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 dun. And that kind of makes me feel better, right? Because I just feel like the bad guy, Lucifer, in his temple, in hell. So whatever your reason, it does help. Their symbolism varies, but it definitely can help. It's one of those stones that does that. So with that being said, let's go on to boredom kills. Boredom kills. Can you think of anything that wasn't mentioned? Practice, a ritual, a talisman, or an amulet, preferably, because I always get those confused in my head. But amulet, because that's more protective. What would you say, if anything, strikes you as protective?
That wasn't mentioned already. Probably go with. Normally, what I would do is either like a pendant charge to a spirit or a force, be it. Off the top of my head, we can go Malthus for protection, or you could go even like the rune Algies is a very good one.
Yep.
That, or for short-term protection, you could simply do like a energetic shield around you.
Very good. Yep. All of those things are good things to do. They're way more active. Like it's one thing to just have a crystal that you rely on. That's like, that's great, and there's nothing wrong with it. I wouldn't even say that you have to go further than that, but if you're putting your faith and energy into it, nothing wrong with just a crystal. But all these other things are even more so, right? One thing I will say, and this is maybe wrong of me according to some people's traditions, I like less is more when it comes to magic. I would rather have one or two protective things, okay, that are like my main go-to, this protects me stuff, rather than an army of little wadgets and widgets that I've got to constantly be charging and worrying about. I would rather have, that's not to say that I don't have multiple things going on occasion, but I will say that it's more along the lines of delegating. So like when you mentioned Malphas, President Malphas was one of the first goetic demons that I approached and spoke with and had a great reaction with. I am absolutely in love with every incarnation of the crow spirit, and President Malphas is that darker goetic expression of that same, we'll say, mysterious, enigmatic crow spirit that is found throughout different systems of mythology and magic. If I were to say what my spirit animal would be, it would be a crow or a raven, hands down, without any question. I didn't know that until like last year or so. Before that, I would have said, oh, a dragon maybe, or something, really macho and cool like that. No, definitely, whatever reason, the crow is me. I can even hear it in the fact that I love the sound of my own voice, but I'm a croaky mother. Rah, 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 listen to what I have to say. I'm very much like that. I love the enigmatic side. I'm social without being dependent on being social. I like my murder of crows, but I'll fly away. Fuck all, get hit by the car. I don't care. It's a different way of being, and I love the crow. I love the trickster mentality, not necessarily the mentality of, oh, I'm going to play pranks on you all the time, trickster. I mean, I like using what it would be called upaya in Buddhism. I like tricking people into realizing things. I like educating people, sometimes indirectly, by putting you guys through, not that I do it with you guys, I'm pretty straightforward, but I like doing that with people. I love, Flesh Priest will say, I like to probe people for things and then draw them into their own trap. And I do love doing that. It's when I'm being adversarial, that's what I do. But I definitely vibe with that. So President Malphas, he's even written as an exquisitely good protector spirit because he builds towers. Okay, he is a guardian spirit in that sense, because when we think of a tower, of course is a watchtower, right? And it's also how, when people had defensive installations, that was the most defensive part of your installation. The walls of your castle were very important, but the towers is what kept people from getting in, really, because people would try to scale those walls and your towers would shoot them off the walls, basically stuff like that. When you think of a castle, you think of the walls, and people don't really go for the walls because they're kind of impenetrable, yes, but the towers are what really kill the invaders. The tower is what really does it. So the towers are important. Plus, it's a watchtower. You get to see in the distance. And anybody with a naturalistic perspective in life, if you're shamanistic even a little bit, if you've ever gone hunting or done hiking, you know that birds, especially things like crows, are excellent sign creatures, as I call them, because crows will react to you in the forest. They will change how they call. They will change how they act. And they will tell you what's around by that behavior. If there's a predator around, they sound different than when it's all things as they should be. For example, when a hawk enters the area, suddenly you'll hear just a chorus of ugly little crow voices, all over the place. And they're really, calling a lot and warning each other. And that would warn you, theoretically, about stuff like that. You could also know if a battlefield was nearby, because crows would congregate sometimes before the battle even, because they knew it was coming. They'd be like, oh, we got armies here. We're going to have food tonight, when all these people are dead in the grass. So this is how sometimes people knew battles were coming and how they happened, even because the crows knew. If you ever notice how a dog will behave around people, a dog can tell when two people are going to fight. A dog can tell when someone's safe to be around too. You can often read a lot in animals because they're very sensitive to body language and behavior. And crows are no different. So crows are an excellent protective spirit. President Malphas is an excellent choice if you have a good relationship. I would say probably even better than any of the kings that I work with, oddly enough, even though the kings are thought to be more high on the hierarchy. I feel like President Malphas is more like one of those I will protect you type of spirits that will just be a very protective being in your heart. So good choice. All right. You also mentioned amulets, basically, and you mentioned runes. Now, runes are well known for the protective qualities. And it's not just that one. There's quite a few you could use that are protective for different reasons. And there's bind runes and rune staves you could make that are very protective in nature. And the sky's the limit with runes. And that leads me into the sigil conversation that we're going to have in a little bit when we create this sigil that I'm going to be making very shortly with you guys. But runes are a good choice. Now, I am by no means a master of runes. I'm really not. Runes are like something I started to delve into, but then I got kind of turned off by the gatekeeping of Norse mythology. If you ever go online into various communities, everybody is got their own little "this belongs to me and my tribe" attitude. And if you try to get into it, you very quickly run into vulvas and people who are telling you that it belongs to them and their families and this and that, and you better not this and that. And it gets really yucky very quickly. But as a subtle current in the background, I do enjoy it a lot. Specifically the more dark side of the Norse current, for sure. Odin is one of my favorite spirits from that current, for sure. I feel like if I was going to be ever engaging with that current directly, Odin would be my liaison for the most part. Though Odin shouldn't be seen as the highest of the high in the Norse pantheon. It's actually kind of more Thor. Thor is more of the Jupiter, Zeus archetype, whereas Odin is actually Mercury. So Odin's actually a mercurial spirit. In fact, his day of the week, Wednesday, Woden's day, is Mercury in every other Hellenistic and Romanistic tradition, and before that, in fact. Wednesday was the day for Woden. Okay, so Thursday was actually the Zeus, the king day. Thursday was that. Friday was Venus, and that's Freya's day, whatever. So Frigga's day, anyway. So this is all really important to keep note, by the way. Don't ever confuse Odin for, when they say the Allfather, that doesn't mean that he is the equivalent of Zeus or even Saturn. He would be more like a Mercury. But anyway. So so you said you liked, what was it, what was the rune you liked using, Boredom Kills? I think you said, for goodness sake, my brain fried. What was the rune you liked?
Usually just algaes or some of the bind runes,
Algaes,
like the hell if I can pronounce it, the Aegis Yalm, or the one where it's like 8 of the algaes in a circle.
In fact, I can show you that for those of you who don't know. Hold on. My Nicodemus idol, when I bought it, I thought that's pretty cool that it's got a protective ward on it as well. And I'm going to make this the idol for my familiar primarily. And it's got it. Hopefully you guys can see it. Hopefully that focuses. I don't know if you can see it good. Can you guys see that okay? Let's see.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, so it almost looks like a wheel, right? A spoked wheel, but that's actually a bunch of different runes combined into like a shield, basically. It's kind of protective, but it's more of a ward. It's more of a it's not like it protects you. It's more like when enemies gaze upon it, it breaks them, kind of thing, if I remember correctly. But I wear that a lot when I go in public, and it does feel pretty good, especially since I charge it and put blood on it all the freaking time. So it's definitely getting charged with energy, even if it's not Nicodemus doing it. So maybe it serves that dual purpose. So very powerful when you see it all over the place. But there's a lot of them, and there's a lot of runes The beauty of runes is there is no one rune that means protection. You can use Isa, for example, if you're just trying to flat out stop things. If you're just like stop, Isa would be fair. You could use Isa just by itself if you wanted to. I'm sure, for protection. Thorisas would be another excellent one to use. So there's all these different ways to look at the runes too. So maybe I'll get more into them again at some point. You could also just follow basic sigil magic practices. You could create a sigil and you could ward it. Now, before we get into that, because that's leading into what we're going to do in a little while, let's talk about some things you can do, specifically things you probably should do for your ritual magic intentions, especially someone like Somniator who's not really quite yet doing much ritual magic besides the LBRP and things of that nature. Let's talk about things you can really do to start preparing and protecting your ritual space. That'd probably be a good place to start. Now, when we're talking about protecting a ritual space, in keeping with what I said before, where we're not protecting it like we're preventing things from happening, we're trying to make it so that we're aware of magic happening. Okay, that's really maybe the best way to look at it. I think it is the best way. So when we're protecting our ritual chamber, what we're doing is we're creating an envelope, a space around us in magic. And your ritual chamber could be outside even. It doesn't have to be in a chamber. It could be in the woods, it could be in a field somewhere. But in this case, we're setting up something that's always on, something that is there, especially when we do ritual. Every time we do ritual, we start with it, maybe even finish with it if we want to take it back down, although I don't do that. I don't even do it before every ritual, but quite frequently I'll do it. I'll set them up. You can call them wards if you want. You can call them imaginary force fields, energy shielding. There's all different ways to describe it. But what I suggest you do, especially if you have a place that you do ritual most frequently, is to, using various symbolism, visual symbolism, physical symbolism, create protective shielding around it, such that when you are in ritual, you can begin your ritual by addressing them, thus subconsciously helping you remove distractions. Sort of like doing the lesser banishing ritual, but instead of banishing something, you're doing that to be like, okay, now that I'm clear in the head, let's not let anything else in. Now that I'm clear in my mind, I've centered myself, ritual is happening. My walls are sealed, my roof is sealed, my floor is sealed. Nothing can get in to my awareness save that which I wish or that I need to be aware of. Obviously, the house catches on fire, you need to hear the smoke alarm go off, right? So we're not saying nothing will get in, but it's meant to be a protective ward. So there are a million different ways you can do this. There's literally, since I am an improvisational sorcerer to the most extent, I don't prescribe one way over any other. What I prescribe is your way. But what I like to do, I will do this sometimes as a preliminary ritual before I start the ritual, the ritual proper, or sometimes I will just do this by itself. Sometimes before I go to bed at night, because where my ritual chamber is, I will visualize me going around and reinvigorating each one remember, I don't do imagery very well with my mind, but I do it with as much mental imagery as I can, and feeling and knowing that I'm doing it, feeling like I'm charging things and restoring things and making sure that they're protected. So what can we do? For one thing, you could, of course, once again, come up with a sigil. You could draw it on the wall and paint. You could put it as a picture on any wall. It doesn't even have to be on each wall. It could be on any one wall. It could be under your ritual, altar. It could be anywhere. It could be hidden in one of your grimoires. Just something that this symbol. Remember what I said. I like simple things. I don't want to have to worry about 100 different wards in my life, or 100 different talismans, or of this and of that. I see magic as everything that I do needs to be special at the time I do it. And then if it's time to change, then I just get rid of the old and bring in a new. I don't want to have 15 different protective wards and spells and spirits, because that's like asking for something to go wrong. I want one thing, two things, three things at most that represent protection in my ritual space or in my life. I want to have something to protect my ritual chamber, something to protect me personally, and something maybe to protect the people I love or my home or something like that. that I put energy into at a time. Then when I'm done with those things, I just recycle them, basically, spiritually speaking. I just say, you know what? I'm tired of using this egregore, this thought form, this servitor, this sigil, this, that, and the other thing to protect me. I don't feel like it's doing much anymore because I'm kind of bored of it. It's not inspiring me anymore. You know what? I'm going to take an old sword that I don't use anymore, and I'm going to empower that to be my guardian of my ritual chamber. And then I'll empower that. I'll visualize it swinging around on its own like Michael's flaming sword. That's protecting my home. That's protecting me. Bam! Now I feel powerful again because now I've got a new thing because I'm very much a fire sign. I like new shit. You know, that's like how I flow. So there we go. Some people, maybe if you're more of an earth sign, maybe you're fine with just a solemn protector that's always there. That's your thing. That would be your way of doing it. But I do like to change things a bunch. So keep that in mind too. So let's see. I'm a lot of hot air, but I'm not really getting to things you can do yet. So just for example, I gave you one already. The sword. You could get something that you see as a weapon. It could be your athame. It could be a statue of a protective spirit. It could be a gun. It could be a bullet even. You could, whatever you want that makes you, that you think of as this is a kind of defensive weapon. It could be a shield. You know, it could be a suit of armor. It could be a helmet. It could be a bracer that you'd wear. Anything that gives you that protective vibe that you really feel like represents some kind of protective power. You could then find various ways to personalize it. You could inscribe it with a rune. You can inscribe it with a sigil. You could write in your grimoire that it's an idol for a spirit, you know, that does this. You can invoke a spirit into it. There's different ways you could do this. Some of them more advanced, like when I say invoke a spirit, you could, so for President Malphas, you could actually get a tower ornament, right? And be like, President Malphas, this is your tower in my ritual chamber. When I use this, it's also an idol to you, but this is where you can perch and watch my home and protect me from. You could do that, you know. That's exactly like something I would consider doing. I've never done that, but that sounds like something I would consider. Just as an example. All right. So you could start with that. Some kind of idolatry way to do it. Create either a servitor that's connected to it or an idol. One thing I have done, quite literally, is I've taken different spiders that I own, ornaments and things. I haven't really empowered this guy in a while, but I'll take a spider like this ornament and I will create a servitor. Now, sometimes I will do it where it's quite literally a little bit more than a servitor. It's closer to a familiar, where I'll talk to a spirit and be like, hey, could you help me create a servitor? Like Lilith, in the case of spiders, just seemed like it made sense. And I invoked Lilith, and Lilith and I made a spider servitor that would protect my home and my ritual space. And the way it was set up was, you know, I had a kill command for it. So if I didn't like it, I could make it go away. But the idea was that I would, once it was energized, I'd spend some time, you know, energizing it from time to time, feeding it. But the idea was that I would sort of place it in a hidden position where I wouldn't see it anymore. Kind of like how spiders like to do. They like to, you know, get places where you don't see them. But that I would envision and imagine in the astral, just webs just gradually filling my whole home. Just picture, I can't remember her name, but the spider monster from Lord of the Rings. Just picture that cave where in the astral my home was just webs everywhere. And any untoward spirit that I didn't want in there would get hung up on it and attacked, not just by the spider, but its children. Because the idea was that I would let it proliferate as much as it wanted, providing it didn't offend me. And the greater part of irony is this house has always had a spider problem, especially in the spring. But the year that I used that predominantly, it was off the chain with spiders. It was almost like if you didn't like spiders, you wouldn't want to be in my house. It was a little... I mean, they were coming down on me and I'm going, hey, little guy. And I put them on. I'm not scared of spiders. They don't bother me unless they startle me. Sometimes they'll make me jump. But, you know, if they come down, I just escort them. I don't even put them outside. I just blow them off somewhere in the house. Go make a nest in the corner and kill some bugs. I don't mind. And it was almost like, did I cause more spiders to happen in my house, or did I just notice them more? And we had a very safe year. That was the year COVID happened. And a lot of crap happened around us. Family had a lot of problems. By all accounts, we should have had problems, and we didn't have any. Nobody got sick in our immediate household, and it just felt like we were protected very well. Eventually, though, I recycled that spirit. I got tired of thinking about it and putting energy into it, and I said the command word for kill, and it's gone. And it wasn't a real spirit. It was a thought form that I had created, and I might do it again because it's a really good thought form. But that's a good example of one. So keep that in mind. So, and it's good to have an idle piece, right? I like, personally, and this may not be for you, but I like idolatry on some level. Idolatry can be drawings, it could be paintings, it could be songs even, but it's something physical that, or at least experiential that you can tune into. You know, when I want to connect with that spider, I hold that little spider ornament and I go, "Where are you?" And I connect to it in my psyche. So keep that in mind. So another one would be visualization. You could envelop your ritual chamber or your home or whatever in like Star Trek shields, for lack of a better way of describing it. Just imagine that, one of the ways that I do it is when I'm feeling really sinister, I'll use like red energy, or I'll use black tar shadow energy. And I'll take my wand and I will use that to channel and direct it, and I will point at each wall and I will visualize the energy flowing through me, being processed by me, through me, into my wand, out my hand, or even just my fingers in the wand mudra, and channeling that energy into the wall. I see it hit the wall, spread out, and become a force field or a solid black obsidian muck that nothing can get through except for what I permit. And I'll do this quite often in ritual or before ritual or at night when I'm going to sleep. It's probably my most used method, And I like using the walls because the walls give you a very clear thing that you can attach your attention to and charge. The walls become the anchor for the magic. Instead of something imaginary, it's something physical that can really hold that mental energy. Now remember, something I told you guys, I don't know if you guys remember a long time ago. Instead of just thinking that you're charging the object, what you're really doing is you're charging the object in your own subjective astral space. You're not actually charging it necessarily for everybody around you. I think some people would disagree, and I'm open to them showing me otherwise, but I'm not convinced that someone can charge an object, hand it to somebody else with zero knowledge that that's what it is, and then pick up I'm not saying it never happens. I'm saying magic's not a machine. It's not a cause and effect system. I've never seen that successful. And I've known some very magical people who we've played games where we've tried to charge things, do this, do that. Having objective, agreed upon experiences in magic is not impossible. So maybe my saying that it's only internal is wrong, but it's not reliable. From crossing that objective boundary is very difficult. I'm not saying it can't happen, but magic is really all about your awareness. It's really all about you realizing that you are God in a way. It's all a way for you to have that conversation with yourself. Other people will notice when you get good at magic, believe me. Everybody in my life that's even remotely aware of what magic is like, Thorne's doing magic again, I can tell. Look at his life change like night to day. The manifestations are obvious in my life. People see me walk into a room, they're like, "Oh, this guy's a magician." People who know, they know. But if I hand them an object, I'll test them. I won't charge it. I'll be like, "What do you think of this?" "Oh, it's powerful." "Yeah." "Oh, yeah, I can feel it." Sure. But that's not to say that I doubt their ability. I don't. There's people I know that are magicians and they do very well and they have a lot of success. I don't trust that they can sense like they think they can, like they hope they can, like they sometimes want to make themselves believe they can. That's not to say, again, I'm going to just keep repeating this. It's not to say it could never happen or I've never seen anything like it. It's just never been repeatable. And this goes back to the testability of magic. This is why we shouldn't confuse magic with a mechanical system of science and cause and effect. Magic really doesn't get validated in the way that natural law does because it's not supposed to. It's not meant for that. It is meant to be a doorway, a window, a gate, a way to communicate with your higher self and go, "Are you listening? Yes, good, we're on the right track. Let's keep doing this." It's just another way to invoke Carl Jung's synchronicity and what that means. It's really, in a nutshell, I'm not saying miracles don't happen, it's just that's what miracles are for, is to be that doorway for your awareness. So anyway, when charging these walls, when charging these surfaces, you need to recognize that it's at least going to work for you. And thus, by extension, people around you will probably benefit from it too. Because if I'm charging things with a lot of protective energy in my life, I'm going to become aware of when we're being protected as a whole. That alone can give you a lot of peace of mind, because you recognize that if bad things happen to you, they're really happening for a really good reason. Instead of feeling like, oh, woe is me, I'm such a victim. When you feel protected by magic, if something negative does get through, you might even ask, gee, I wonder what would have happened if I didn't have these protections up, or what lesson am I supposed to be learning from this? When I first got back into magic again, and I joined S. Ben Kane in his house for a little while, he had a lot of enemies at the time, which understandably so, and I came under spiritual attack. I know I did, because that week my car basically broke in half. And it was pretty raunchy, but I was totally protected. Nothing bad happened. I wasn't hurt. I was even able to drive it home cracked in half with a broken frame. I was even able to drive it home without having anything bad happen to me. And before it happened, the crows around me at work were going crazy. It was like they're trying to get my attention. Every time I got in the car, rah, 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 I was like, what the hell is going on? Is this they're probably just chasing off a hawk. I'm not going to worry. I noticed it 3 times. And then on my way to lunch, I'm making a turn, clonk, and the whole car just like, boop, the frame broke. And it was being held together by what I don't know, but I managed to drive it home like an accordion with the back going all different wrong. It was really funny. My father-in-law said, you should have hit a tree just to get the insurance. I should have. But, and everyone around me would be like, oh man, somebody cursed you. I'm like, actually, that was probably the little bit that got through. That's probably all that was, because I probably should have died. You know, that's a car going 40 miles an hour down the road. It should have cracked in half and sent me swerving off the road and killed me or hurt me pretty bad. Instead, I was making a very low speed turn and I heard a thunk and then it didn't drive right. I can live with that. To me, that's a near miss. That's a magical sign. That is a you were protected today sign. Is it just me making shit up? Maybe. Don't care. It still puts me in tune with a magical frame of mind. That's really what I'm looking for. And that's not the only thing, but that's probably the funniest example I can give you guys. So another one would be my dog. The night I met President Malphus, she was in dire distress, and we thought that she was reacting to a spirit in the room, and I guess maybe she was. But we were really like, we felt the presence in the room. It wasn't just the dog upset. And she was very, very eager to get to a corner of the room, just like barking at it, wagging her tail at it. I felt the presence there. My wife had a dream about President Malphus, so we concluded that it was President Malphus in the room getting our attention. Turns out that on top of that, my dog had one of those, I don't want to be gross, but impacted anal glands, and it was giving her really bad pain, and it basically, she had to go to the vet the next day. But it was almost like a warning of that too. Like take something seriously. Something serious is happening right now. And it's kind of like, I don't like to think that President Malphus caused my dog to have a problem, but I do feel like President Malphus is going, hey, pay attention. Something bad's going on. Call, pay attention, motherfucker. And we missed it. We didn't interpret it right. That's more like how I see it. But I'll put it up to you guys to decide which it is. So let's see, where was I going to go with some of this other stuff? Amulets for protection that you carry around with you. It sounds like Boredom Kills already knows quite a bit about this if he's using one. So amulets for protection can be anything from a lucky stone that you charge all the time, put in your pocket, keep with you. Good choice might be malachite. That's what President Marbos taught me I already knew this, but he really drove it home with the whole COVID thing. We had used malachite, and I put it in different parts of my home. If you guys watch my ritual channeling in President Marbos during the start of the COVID stuff, he had very clearly instructed me on what to do. Very simple: charging malachite, placing it in 4 corners of the home, north, south, east, and west, especially near entrances and exits of the home. So if you got a front door and a back door, put it right next to it. And every time you go through, as frequently as you can remember, just glance at it and just, send a little bit of vibe into it, and it will keep the evil out of your life. We'll say the physical evil, the sickness out of your life. Did it work? It's up to anybody. We didn't get sick at all. We definitely didn't have it. So In fact, I haven't been actually sick in years, but didn't get sick at all last year. If anything, my health's improved by leaps and bounds ever since that. I lost 84 pounds as of today. So, hey, I guess maybe I can thank that a little bit. I think it was just a general health improvement. Would that count as a ward? Yes, absolutely. It's an amulet and a ward. It was there with the intention to protect me from outside germs and negativity coming in the house. Sort of acts like an airlock. Whenever you come in the home, it cleanses you on your way through, and then it doesn't really stay in your home very well. So I like it. I think it works. So these are all valid ways to protect yourself. But you could, of course, create or have a necklace or create or have an amulet. Now, it's very common for people to take amulets and place them, especially men, put them in their wallet. Women put them in their purse. You can have a locket where you put it inside there. And amulets don't have to be made of anything special. An amulet is a fetish that you can charge, that you can draw your sigil work on, and then you can place someplace secret and hidden, but you'll take it out every once in a while, give it a little boost of energy, and put it back. So an amulet is very often something that it's supposed to be a little portable. That's sort of the purpose of it. So let's sort of go around does everybody have, anybody who's going to be doing this anyway, do you have the materials you need? Do you have your paper? Do you have all that kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, good. Let me take a drink here because I'm talking too much. Okay. So you can make this as elaborate a ritual as you want. You can make this as simple as you want. The biggest part of the energy initially comes from the creation of the sigil itself. It is important to reinforce it regularly, sometimes daily, especially at first. I would say the first 3 days of any magical tool are the most important. You either charge the living fuck out of it and then let it rest for 3 days before you touch it or even think about it again, or you spend the first 3 days just squishing more and more energy into it for at least 3 days. Some people would say a whole lunar cycle. I agree. I don't disagree with that. If you've got the wherewithal, if you've got enough earth energy in you to do that every day, go for it. Me, I'm too fiery, so I tend to be like, I'm bored of this thing after 3 or 4 days. And it still works because I'll still pick it back up. But if you can do it every day, do it every day. It won't hurt. So let's do this. Let me bust out my little, this is not my grimoire. This is more of a journal that I keep a lot of stuff in. And I think I have it on the page. Yes, just about. And you guys might have seen these before because I did put some of them up publicly. I don't know if I put this specific one up, but I think I did. So I'm going to show this to you. In fact, I'll probably take a picture with my phone and put it in the Inner Voice channel. But you can see I have 2 sigils on this page. They look very much like runes, but they're not. They're in English, but I used very runic font to make the letters. And that's destroy at the top, but we're really, really focused on protection. Now, when you look at that, tell me if you can understand beyond, don't even worry about where the letters are in that sigil. Tell me if that doesn't look like something that is blocking something, that is warding you from something. You know, usually when you're drawing a picture of something symbolic, the thing at the bottom is towards you and the thing above or to the left, right is from outside, right? So this almost looks like something coming in and being bounced off in a little bit, right? It's got a little bit of that vibe going on. Now you can create your own sigil for this, but if you would like to use this, I'm going to put this in the inner sanctum in just a moment. So let me know, because if you want to create your own sigil, we'll go through that a little bit more. But if you guys want to use that one, just let me know either way so I know what to do. Because if we're going to use mine, then I can go a little quicker. So what do you guys want to do?
I'll just use yours.
Okay. In fact, let me take the whole page so you can get the whole word. I like one-word sigils. Not everybody does. I like one-word sigils because they're a little bit more fluid. They're not quite as hardcore specific. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't ever make specific sigils that are, more direct, I guess. But I really like using one-word sigils because they just seem like words of power at that point. And it's a lot easier to actually turn that into something phonetic. When you have a whole sentence, you got a big long thing you got to say. You guys familiar with my phonetic sigils, or do I have to go? I can go over that if I need to. Do you need me to go over that with you guys? Doesn't sound like anybody is. No one's saying yes, so I'll go over that a little bit. Let's see. I got to edit the picture because it's cockeyed.
Are these in the book?
What, and Become the Maelstrom? No.
No. Okay.
Phonetic sigils is something I kind of developed after all of that. And it's not really anything really hyper complicated. It's actually very much the way people will use, one might even argue Enzer really got their source in something like this, but it's definitely like in Enochian. Enochian, when we intone Enochian, one of the ways that is very common to do it is to do it syllabalistically, where you don't say it as a word, you say almost like Jehovah, okay, Yahweh, okay. Yahweh is, YHWH, right? And you, instead of saying, like if you're intoning that, obviously it means tetragrammaton in English or whatever, but you wouldn't say Yahweh. You kind of intone each letter specifically. Yad, He, Ve, Ha. That's what you would say in ritual. So in a very similar sense, what we're doing here, if we're going to use the phonetic version, is we're going to take the letters after doing the reduction that you do in all sigil work, which is why I put the whole picture there. And when we do the reduction in sigil work, you're left with the resultant letters that you use. Then you can intone those. And I just creatively use whatever vowels make sense to make it feel right. There's no rule to it. You can make it whatever you have. So protection becomes PRTCN. And then the intonation words that I might use would be, po, ra, ta, ka, ko, na. And I would just intone that or mentally intone it, however you want to do it. And just say that once, twice, 100 times, however many times you feel is right. You can change it to be however you want it to sound, but make sure you vibrate it. Think of Om, Aum, the Sanskrit, the Hindu word, which is really Amen in the Western world. We just put the N on the end of it. It's Amen. That's Aum. It's the same fucking thing. That is the tone of the universe, the vibration of creation. And we can say the same thing about all of these different things. There might be better ways to do it than I'm doing it. This is my experimental version. Maybe someday I'll come up with, it should sound like these better vibrations for each letter, but I'm not going to worry about it. I think that intuitively we all get it. We all know when we intone these syllables that it's powerful. For those of you who, have you guys listened to my Lucifer mantra, most powerful Lucifer mantra, the one where it sounds like Buddhist chanting a little bit? Have you guys ever listened to that one?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example of it right now. Let me share my screen. Make sure I got the right one. Okay, let me go. If I can find it really quick. Ta-da! Ooh, got a lot of views now. Damn it, Behemoth X with your 400,000 views. Good job, bro. All right. So tell me when you guys can hear this. I'll play this just for a minute. Are you guys all tuned in? Okay.
Think I.
All right, I'm going to start it. If you don't, just let me know. Should start. Come on. There we go. Okay, did you guys hear that? La, U, Si, I, Fe, Ra. That's basically Lucifer in phonetic chanting. So instead of saying L, U, C, I, F, E, R, I'm saying it more in that in that I don't know if you call it Hebraic or whatever, but I am giving them each a mantra sound. So it could be lo, u, sa, fu. It doesn't really matter, but it sounded right to me to say la, u, si, I, fe, I, ra. It sounds mystical. It sounds special. So let's hear it again, and we'll repeat it a little bit. Anyway, I'm really proud of that one. If you guys haven't used it, try it. It's probably my favorite like ritual chanting thing I've ever made. So let's stop that there. Yeah, I don't need to tell you guys how the stream went. Leave me alone. All right. So give that a whirl sometime, and we're going to use the same principle here if you guys want. I think it's a good idea. So who's got the picture ready? You guys see it in the channel? Okay. As long as you guys have access to it. Let's get the ball rolling. First, before we even do anything with the paper or the sigils or anything, I'm going to just briefly center and clear myself. You don't have to do anything fancy for this. I'm just going to do what I usually do with some new additions that I don't usually do. That's kind of new for me. So. Let's really get the mood right. Now, excellent incense you can use for protection. Things like frankincense, cedar. A lot of those really woody incenses are good. Palo Santo, sage to a different degree. All very good for protective things. They all have a tendency to clear energy and appeal to spirits with a more, we'll say, not necessarily positive, but protective energy to them. But you kind of can't go wrong. Any kind of sacred smoke can be useful. Center and clear your mind. Let go of anything that might distract you overmuch. Focus on the work that you're going to be doing. Relax and know that what you are going to do is already done. If you want to turn this into a bigger deal, you could always invoke a spirit into it. Try that some other time, perhaps. We're just going to be using our own energy for this today. This way it won't depend on any other outside force. It's all up to you. Okay, we'll do a little bit more in a moment when we actually start charging this. So, when you guys are ready, when you've centered yourself and you feel prepared, get your paper and stuff ready. And you can decorate this up any way you want. You can add to it, subtract to it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to draw it first. And let me actually trim this down a little bit. I'm actually going to make it a little smaller. You know what? I'm just going to, I like triangles, you guys know that. So I'm just going to lazily cut it into as close of an equilateral shape as I can make it. If you guys want to make it a circle, make it a circle. If you want to keep it as a square, keep it as a square. Whatever feels good. Okay, it's not perfect, but that'll do. You can always redo it later if I don't like it. One thing I'll remind you guys of is that a good way to dispose of any sigil is to dispose of it in fire. Now, you could even charge this for a while, then burn it, and then take the ashes and place it into an amulet. Like one of those, if you go to a crafting store, they'll often have these little glass vials that you can wear as a necklace. You could burn the sigil, take the ashes and any substance that you feel is related to protection, put this all together. You could use crushed up quartz, you could put salt, you could put obsidian, anything you feel is appropriate, and mix it in, mingle it in with those ashes, and then charge that some more if you want to. That's like using alchemy to kind of transmute, you know, the substance into a more refined version of what it is. You could do that, but we're not going to get crazy. We're just going to make an amulet out of this today. So I'm going to draw this shape as best as I can. And while I'm drawing it, when I'm doing it initially with the pencil, I don't worry about it too much, but I just sort of repeat the word protection in my mind. So I want to repeat the word protection as I draw this. I just want to create the psychic connection to this as protection. This means protection. When I see this, I know that there is protection. Protection is a vague enough word that when said with the right authority and intention, you don't have to explain what you're trying to protect yourself from. I am protected. This is protection. You can even say things like that. We're not doing anything with visualization yet. We're just doing our best to create the image. Make a connection. Okay, now I've got it sketched in. Now I'm going to take my marker, but first I'm just going to look at this for a moment. I want to make sure that my hand is steady. Now, when I'm going with the marker, this is where I want to make sure that I'm pushing energy into it preliminarily. As I draw it, I really want to see and feel and know that energy is going through me into my stylus, my hand, my pen, whatever I'm using. And I'm impregnating with that masculine energy, that masculine wand energy. I'm impregnating this feminine object, this paper. Paper is a very feminine object. It's got the female energy to it. I'm impregnating this paper with the masculine energy of my intention. It's very important what I just said to you. It doesn't matter what order you draw it in. Just go with whatever's comfortable for you. Make it as neat as you can. If you make any mistakes, consider starting over if they're really drastic. Going with a slow, steady hand is fine. This is for protection. I do this for protection. Try to see the lines leap off the page if you can. Try to gaze. Try not to look at the object. Try to gaze through it. Use your gazing stare if you're capable of doing that. Do this for protection. I am protected when I have this. Start saying affirmations. Physically say them if you can. I do this for protection. I am protected when I carry this. It shall protect me always. Now give it a moment. I often like to decorate my talismans so that they're not just a piece of paper. If you have a personal sigil or mark, I would actually advise you to consider putting it under the sigil so it's below the line, the flat line, the barrier line. And if you're not familiar with what I'm saying, I'll show you in a moment. For anybody watching this at home after the fact, you may want to just fast forward through some of this, but hopefully there's good information coming out. Okay, I'm almost done. You'll see I'm decorating this a little bit. When you're done with it, just sit and focus on it and gaze on it just for a little bit. I'll show you what I did here in a moment. What I like to do is once I've drawn it, I'll let the ink dry or the paint or whatever I'm using. And then I'll take an eraser and very just lightly erase any pencil that might still be visible. You don't have to press hard, just get the obvious stuff off. You can even imagine that you're purifying it a little bit further. Erasers are a great symbol of the correction of mistakes. This would be like Chaos Magic 101, symbols of objects. Just like scissors can be seen as cutting things, erasers can be seen as correcting things, or at least removing mistakes. All right. All right, good. So I'll show you guys. Don't know if any of you are ready to look yet, but this is what I ended up with. What do you guys think?
Wow.
So you see I've got my personal sigil under it. I've got the, don't want to give you guys too much of the finger. I've got my protection sigil there. and I've surrounded it with a border. This sort of encapsulates it a little bit better. You don't have to do that, but I think it looks nice, and it kind of helps you feel like you've got an object in your hand, not just a drawing, right? So consider doing something like that. I love black paper for the contrast. I think it looks so much more like something than using white paper does. So consider getting yourself some black construction paper or cardstock. I like cardstock. All right. Close this up. Oh, you know what? Let's keep that open, actually. We're going to be using the phonetic stuff, aren't we? Okay. This is all going to be different for each of you. It's going to follow your own personal tendencies. But what I want you guys to begin doing is I want you to gaze upon your sigil. And I just put it in your left hand, your non-dominant hand if it's not your left. And just sort of feel the weight of it. You know? Those of you who know how to do the sidewall technique, the sideball technique, you can adapt that here a little bit. And I want you to, if you know how, generate one with one hand. Get the ball formed. Once you have that empty ball, I want you to fill it with the intention of protection. Visualize situations where you're being protected. Visualize a knight in armor protecting you. Visualize a force field around you. Visualize whatever symbolism you like. And fill that ball with that energy. Gaze at your sigil. Exhale into that sphere. Remember to exhale longer than you inhale for proper charging. Feel the energy of the universe going through you. Your divinity commands. Say, I am protected.
I am protected.
When you feel ready, engage the two together. See the energy of the ball fill the sigil. See it glow. See it leap off the paper. Feel it getting sucked into the sigil. See that sigil glowing. The high contrast of the black paper really makes that good. Close your eyes, run your hand over it, see if you can feel anything. If you can't, imagine what it would feel like. Let's use the sigil script now, the phonetic sigils. Let's intone it. To See it glowing with the blinding light. Feel its energy. Feel it with your left hand. Feel it like it's alive in your hand. If you're doing it right, especially if you're connected to it, you may even feel it, like when I'm rolling my hand over it. I can almost feel the triangular shape. I can almost feel the sigil. I can almost feel my other hand through the sigil. My left hand can feel something. It almost feels like the sigil's moving to respond to my hand. That's how strong the connection should feel. If you can't feel it, imagine what it feels like until you do. Place your hand on it and break the connection. Place it face down in front of you and ignore it for a little while. We need to go into a normal state of mind. So did you guys watch the Logan Paul and Floyd Mayweather fight last night by any chance?
Yeah.
You guys didn't catch that? Oh man, that's such a setup. That is such a freaking setup. You know they're doing that just so that they can look, because they're both kind of like, Mayweather's like a has-been and Logan's just trying to become popular. You know, he's trying to like be forgiven for that suicide forest thing that he did. Ah, man, what a joke. They didn't even score it. It wasn't even a scored fight. Man, that's so lame. I hate that crap. I really hate that crap. But my wife wanted to see it. You know, it costs like $50 for that thing? $50 freaking dollars, man. $50 freaking dollars.
He said something that like it was legal robbery or something after the fight.
Yeah, it is like a legal route. It's like crazy what they, and like everything leading up to it was the most banal bullshit that like I hate it. Like we tried to watch it for free everywhere. I'm not afraid to say we tried to watch it for free everywhere, and just because I wanted to see the fight, I didn't care who won, you know, because I know Mayweather's kind of like a sellout and Logan Paul is kind of like worse than that. So it's like I don't care who gets hurt, but what I did see, like Mayweather just toyed with him the whole time. Like it was just. Like it was clearly staged exhibition. I didn't buy into it.
Well, yeah, they thought it was staged because he knocked him out but held him up at one.
Yeah, basically, yes. I didn't see that part, but I heard that.
Yeah.
Totally true. Totally true. Totally true. Okay, not to spoil it, but does anybody know why we're suddenly talking about the Floyd Mayweather Logan fight? Come on, you got to know why we suddenly switched gears that hard.
To totally shut off the magical mind.
Totally shut it off. And I shouldn't have said it, but it's important for the class to know. So if it doesn't work this time, do it next time that way. Get that completely shut off. All right, now you can pick up your sigil again. You should feel nothing. Feels like a sheet of paper to you now. What you want to do with that now is place it someplace that will be with you. I don't know if that's going to fit in my wallet. I might just keep it in one of my books, but that's going to be a place that's going to get reused. I'm going to charge that from time to time. Preferably every day. When you do so, use whatever method you like. If you want to invoke spirits into it, go for it. If you just want to use that simple energy work method, whatever version you want to do, go for it. You don't have to do anything ceremonial. You can just do some low magic with it. You can just put symbolic items that represent protection. You want to charge occasionally. Pour salt on it. You know, do whatever you want. Of course, salt's going to kind of, I would say, absorb whatever energy you put into it. So I probably wouldn't do that. But you could. You know, whatever you feel is best. Put your, so for example, Amobius, you can put your obsidian stone on top of it and use that to just signify, hey, this is more protection. This is all protection altogether, all the time. And just charge the living shit out of it. Now that this is charged, especially if you're carrying it with you, try to become aware of any time that you've been protected, so to speak. Anything that could count as protection. Become aware of that. And when it happens, reflect back on this sigil. Reflect back on your amulet. Reflect back on that might have been what did it. And don't just tell yourself that. Feel through it. If it feels wrong, no, it wasn't my magic, then it wasn't your magic. If it feels like, yeah, you know, I feel like there's a connection, run with that. And put it in your journals and really play with that idea and explore it and ask yourself, what is my higher self trying to tell me? By higher self, I don't mean just the HGA from Thelema and all this shit. I'm talking about your true self, that's really all the HGA is supposed to be. The HGA is your galactic, universal, non-dual avatar. You know, what is this supposed to be telling me through this experience? What is this communication we're having? What is the message? And remember, my philosophy is magic is a way, not for us to get shit we want, although that's often a result. The purpose is to create these synchronistic encounters where we go, I did magic for this, and I asked for this, and I commanded this, and it happened. Does that mean that my connection to the greater whole of the universe is more than just a cog in a machine? Am I more than just a blob of meat with a thought in it? What's going on? What am I? I am actually the divine incarnate. That is what I am. Try to recognize that in all of your magic. And protection's a great way to do it. All right, guys, so I think we're getting close to the end. Any questions or comments on this lesson or anything to bring up next time even? What do you guys, if there's anything to say, what do you guys want to say?
Definitely, I didn't make the sigil then, but I'm gonna put it on this piece of bark and put it
Okay.
on my porch.
Okay, fuck yeah, that'll do it. Carve it really nice, actually. You really do a good job on it. That sounds like it'd be badass, especially if you carve it and then maybe put some stain or marker into it to really make it stand out. That'd be a really badass way to do it. I like that. So very cool, very cool. All right, unless there's anything else, I think I've done my due diligence for the night. Unless there's any other comments, hopefully that helps you guys, especially you, Somniator, since you're still working up to doing more and more magical processes. Something like this, creating a sigil, charging it, and putting it into use is a really good way to do things. You'll notice this is not the traditional chaos magic way where you go jerk off onto it, enter the rapture state, and then burn it. Though you could turn it into that. It's basically sigil magic 101 minus the burning and the masturbation. You notice what I said during the whole thing where I said, recognize the paper as the feminine, recognize the pen as the masculine, recognize that you're impregnating reality with your intention by way of the marker, as the stylus, as the wand, as the phallus, in charging that paper, that feminine receptacle, the fertile soil, with the imagery, with the intention. See it that way. And it really works really good that way. Okay? All right, guys. Until next time, I don't know exactly what we're going to talk about next week, but if you guys have any requests for a class, let me know. Maybe we'll continue this with something similar next week. Maybe we'll make I don't know. Maybe we'll, I don't know. I don't want to do any baneful magic with you guys right now, but I don't know. We'll see. Maybe we'll have a discussion about baneful magic. We'll see. No promises. So if you guys got anything you want to talk about next week, bring it up in Inner Sanctum, and we'll have that conversation next week.
Cool.
All right.
All right.
See you then.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.